Hey Summit Daily viewers, this is Antonio Olivero, sports and outdoors editor with the Summit Daily, coming at you today from the Grays Peak Trailhead up at the top of Stevens Gulch Road all the way up here. I'd probably say for at least the last 3/4 of a mile, if not longer, has been absolutely mobbed. Getting up here at about 8 a.m. we stashed our bike after a friend with a high clearance vehicle dropped us off here. So just to give you an idea, we'll show you the trail, the map all the way up to Grays Peak and Torreys Peak. We'll be starting down from this trailhead here and hiking up from there, as you can see along the red line. Right about here, we're going to continue on toward Grays Peak before traversing over to Torreys and retracing our steps. So looking at about 3,000 feet of elevation gain to get up to Grays, maybe a little bit more. As you can see here, the snow is lingering from the storms about a week ago, upslope storms that blanketed this side of Grays and Torreys on the Continental Divide a little bit more. With the aspens in bloom, it's beautiful. The trail won't be like this all the way up, as we're at right about tree line, a little bit over 11,000 feet. And in total, I'd say closer to 3,500, 3,600 feet of elevation gain getting up to Torreys. So check back in with you guys when a little bit further along the trail. Unsurprisingly, utterly mobbed this 14er on one of the final Saturdays. Many people will be able to get to hike these two. We are 0.9 miles, a little bit over that, into the hike. As you can see, the hike pretty much the entire time is out in the open, no real canopy. This trail, which is impossible to lose, very well, I guess, maintained and built water bars throughout the trail until we got to this point. It's a little bit of a flat pitch before we start gaining a little bit more as we hike through this basin area of sorts. I believe that's Grays Peak straight ahead. You can see the switchbacks going up toward the top of the mountain. Looks like they're switchbacking through snow, so glad I brought my micro spikes today. Hopefully others did as well. Okay, we've gained about 1,000 feet over the first 1.8 miles of this hike. So in terms of distance, sheer distance from here to the top of Grays Peak, we're about halfway there. But we have 2/3 of our climbing left to go. I will say for this hike, I was expecting a little bit more of a steeper ascent over the first little bit. I was expecting kind of just gain throughout. It's been gradual throughout the first 2 miles, I'd say. And there've been some stretches like just now where it flattens out a little bit and you can kind of get a little rest. So yeah, we can look at Torreys Peak straight ahead as I pan around. That's the second peak we'll be going to. Can't wait to get to the top of Grays, which from this vantage point, you can see the amount of people up there. There's some hikers going up the trail toward Kelso Ridge, which is this alternative means of getting up and down, certainly a lot more technical of climbing up and down Torreys Peak, which is right there, than the standard route, which is what we're ascending up. So just about 2 miles in is where that break-off point is for Kelso Ridge. You can make a nice loop hike of Grays and Torreys using Kelso Ridge. We're gonna do more of what I guess I'd describe as like a lollipop route, where we go continue on this trail, hit those switchbacks up Grays as we'll continue along, and then come down that ridge there up to Torreys, and then back down the ridge, and then coming back on this trail. So but just a heads up, that's right about 2 miles in on this trail is where it breaks off for that technical climb up Kelso Ridge. Checking in with one of Grays Peak's local residents, mountain goat up ahead, as we are about 2.8 miles, and I'd say roughly 1,900 feet of elevation gain, 13,100 feet into this hike. A little standoff between Mr. Husky over here, who's on a leash, and Mr. Mountain Goat. That's why you want to keep your dog on a leash on a trail like this, which I believe is mandatory for the totality of the trail. I'll switch back up here and come say hello as the sun rises over the Continental Divide. Tell you one thing, that Mountain Goat's got the right traction. Even if nobody up here is wearing micro spikes or crampons through the snow, he knows what he's doing. You can see the ascension since the junction over to Kelso Ridge down below, and the conga line coming up and down on this popular September Saturday. I'd say we got about 1,100 feet of elevation gain left to go up these switchbacks. Okay, so we're about 2.9 miles into the hike. My topographic map and compass are saying 13,300 feet. Everyone we're chatting with saying we're close to 13,500. We reached the junction, as you can see on this trail signage, that the kind of easier but longer way up Grays is this way, and going kind of straight ahead as I pan around is a shorter, steeper way up to Grays, and truly the saddle between Grays and Torreys peaks. So I think I'm gonna opt for the longer and more shallow, more gradual ascent up. It's gonna be through, as you can see ahead, some snow. Most people are hiking this trail, like I said, without microspikes, so I'm gonna throw mine on, and we're going to come back down here after we summit both peaks. So gonna head up this way. Again, 2.9 miles, I'd say right about 2,000 feet of elevation gain in, and somewhere between 13,300 and 13,500 above sea level. All right, we're just under 14,200 feet. The summit is straight ahead, up above 14,000. Anyone who's hiked a 14er knows what it's like. You gotta take that many more breaks in between you're hiking. But I'll stick with you guys as we top out on the summit here. Switch back one more time, and then one more time to the right. As you can see, everyone coming up. Whew. Maybe 20 or 30 more feet of elevation gain and we're here. Oh, it feels good. Then we got to get all the way over to Torreys. Summit right here. All right, let's head up there. We gained just under 3,000 feet. See, we're 3.9 miles into our hike. It's taking us about 2.5 hours. The final steps are always the toughest. All right, get ready for the crowds, because they're here. The westerly views out towards Summit County. You can see from here. Let's keep hiking toward the true summit. Oh boy. I'm gonna flip you guys around as we reach the summit. Summit County proper is going to be straight ahead. You can see some of the ski runs coming off. I believe that's Keystone Ski Resort straight ahead. Then way in the distance, you can see it's not too hazy. You can see Breckenridge Ski Resort's runs leading up toward the 10-mile Mosquito Range, Quandary Peak over there. Continental Divide swings back around from Grays and Torreys over through toward Mount Guyot, and then ultimately Baldy, and ultimately further west. There's Torreys straight ahead. The basin, the valley we've hiked up through. And the true summit cairn straight ahead. Plenty of crowds all around. We'll skirt it. Love the American flag, guys. Love it. And here we are, the summit of Grays Peak. It's a bit windy up here, but as we hike down the trail to reach the saddle and head up toward Torreys, it's worth noting that Grays and Torreys are effectively the highest points on the Continental Divide trail. So if and when you try to summit one of these, and you do, you can say we're on the highest point on the Continental Divide here in the contiguous United States of America. We're about 4.2 miles back down here in the cold in the saddle between Grays Peak, which we just hiked down, which you can see above, and looking ravaged by winds coming in from the east and the west in this low point here on the highest point really on the Continental Divide Trail, these two summits. But you could just imagine the wind and the winter weather just hitting this trail sign. It's right here where we're going to return to. Right, we're at the low point in the saddle here in the Col, probably about 500 feet of elevation gain straight ahead on the Torreys Peak Trail. If we can get up there in a half an hour or quicker, I'll be happy. As we hike up, you can see this cornice hanging on right here in the low point in the saddle. It's worth noting, CFI, the Colorado 14ers Initiative, continues to do great work on this, on these trails up Grays and Torreys, considering they're so popular. On a clear day like this, without any snow on the trails, pretty easy to stay on trail. That being said, despite the fact that CFI has done a great job, kind of right below Quandary, I'm sorry, not Quandary, Grays, hiking toward Torreys, and they've done really great work up there. They're after a storm like the one we had a couple weeks ago, even with the warm weather and the sun, still quite a bit of lingering snowpack. So yeah, you know, be sure to bring your micro spikes, and you're going to be putting them on and taking them off in portions throughout this hike. All right, we're above 14,200 feet again. Say about 4.7 miles total into our hike. Took longer than a half hour. Had to take a little bit of a refuel break, maybe 200 feet down as we climbed up Torreys Peak, but we're right about here at the summit. About a little over 3,500 feet of total elevation gain from the Grays Peak Trailhead to summit both of these mountains in this fashion. Final switchback to get to the summit. Oh boy, I tell you, once you get above 12,000, especially 13,000 feet, closer to 14,000, terrain you think you can hike in 5 minutes takes 10, sometimes 15 as we approach the Torreys Peak summit. You can see some climbers coming up from Kelso Ridge, a bit more of a technical climb up from the junction I showed you guys before. Head back around to the east. There's Grays behind us, the sister summit we're just the top of. Then I'll turn the camera around and we'll look west toward Summit County. Way down below you may be able to see Interstate 70 straight ahead, kind of right in the middle of the screen there. Apologies, a bit windy up here. You should be able to see Lake Dillon, Dillon Reservoir, and then the Gore Range kind of up to the right from there. And going back toward Dillon Reservoir, you can see Interstate 70 descending down into Dillon. Peak 1 and Peak 2, it's a bit hazy, but you can kind of see them. Lacking sunlight here today. And over toward the 10-mile range. As more hikers make their way up the final ascent to the summit of Torreys Peak.